Welcome to Not Fight Week. It is me, Zane Simon, joined by Phil McKenzie and Connor Rubish of BloodyElbow.com, and we are here for a non-fight week show, which means it is time for the MMA Depressed Us.
It's Phil's third time doing a show with us. He gets second billing, and I get a name mispronunciation. What the hell is going on here, Phil? What's going on, Phil?
I've always told myself though, if I ever got on like a video podcast with you, I would mispronounce your name somehow. But
and also
we've got to do it in a different way.
Yoko Ono, one of my oldest working relationships. I mean, come on.
I'm not saying that Phil may slowly replace you. I'm just saying.
I knew this day.
I'm saying I know how to pronounce Mackenzie. I see Mackenzie and I know how to pronounce Mackenzie. So it gets second billing. That's all there is to it. Rebush, whatever. That's all too much for me.
Mackenzie is a little white girl's first name. So I just
only in California.
I think I probably knew a Mackenzie here in Cincinnati, but I'll have to check Facebook while we're watching our fights.
Spreading.
I still have trouble believing that you know anyone in Ohio, really, because, as my feeling is that Ohio is the flyover state that other states think of as other flyover states think of as flyover states. Like Montana, people in Montana are like, oh, Ohio's a flyover state.
No way, dude. There's nothing in Montana. There's nothing in Montana. Montana is the South Dakota of the northern U.S. Like, it's a wasteland.
Ohio has 2 UFC champions now.
Yeah, that's true. Right. We got Cody Garbrandt. We got Stipe Miocic. There's a guy named LeBron James who's apparently very popuper. We got a couple standouts, man. Neil Armstrong, the Wright brothers. Come on now.
What sports do they play?
They're Neil Armstrong, I think, is a basketball player. I don't really keep up with other sports, so I'm not sure.
Okay, whatever. We're here to do the MMA Depressed Us, not talk about Connor's horrible flyover state or his last name, which, whatever. These things are not why we're here. We're here to watch the worst fights we can find and to slowly drain the life force from our bodies because we don't have good fights to watch this week. So when you don't have good fights to watch, what better way to use your time than to watch some really, really bad fights? As always, we're going to be watching what we consider to be a good bad fight, which is a fun fight that is terrible and sloppy but fun. A bad fight, which is just an abomination and an affront to all forms of entertainment and has no business ever being watched by anyone. And a really underwhelming, disappointing fight. Something that everybody at the time it was going to happen thought would be a big, awesome, cool fight, and it just sucked. And it sucked hard.
Movie parallels, we've got like Troll 2, good, bad. We've got Gigli, bad, and we've got Suicide Squad, disappointing.
Exactly.
That's basically the experience we're in for.
That is our plan. So this week, our good bad fight is going to be Mark Hunt versus Ben Rothwell at UFC 135. There's a little debate about whether this is actually a good bad fight or not. We will find out.
I've been promised that I'll be surprised and will in fact enjoy myself. So here's hoping.
Then we have for our bad fight, which, well, it couldn't really be a disappointment because I think everybody, I don't know. It's not really a disappointment because nobody thinks of a Jake Shields fight as, right, except for GSP Shields, which we already led with. But whatever, that's GSP.
It's the only time where your expectations of a Jake Shields fight were not like naturally blunted.
Yeah. So our bad fight is Jake Shields versus Tyron Woodley at UFC 161. Current UFC welterweight champion versus former UFC welterweight title contender in a fight that nobody really thought would be entertaining unless Woodley melted Shields in 2 seconds, which didn't happen.
And it's worth pointing out that this is a fight including one of the greatest welterweights of all time and the current welterweight champion, and it's not only a bad fight, but it's not even, somehow it didn't mean enough at the time to even feel disappointing, which is very strange because it seems to be a really elite contest, but if my memory is correct, it's a real slog.
Yeah. And then for our disappointment, we are going to watch Dan Severn versus Ken Shamrock 2 at UFC 9, which is one of the most infamously bad fights in UFC history. And
I think it's pretty much considered the worst MMA fight ever.
Yeah, I think it is.
And this video is 42 minutes long, man.
Yeah.
We got to get to it quickly.
We're going to jump in right now, and we are going to start these videos on the 0 point. So we're just going to start talking, and we'll count down, and we'll be talking after the countdown, and Connor will give you a little cue when the fights are actually going to start, when round 1 is going to start. So that's the plan. Join us, please, if you hate yourself and you have way too much time today. So thank you, everyone, and let's get going. Oh, shit. I just hit start for God knows what reason. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, 0.
Who says 0 instead of go?
Whatever. Don't screw with my chi here. I'm on a roll. And
That's right. Classic fighter introduction card here. Good face on Ben Rothwell.
Yeah, Ben Rothwell always looks like A, he just smelled something, and B, he's not exactly really ready to fight. Like, he just kind of woke up from a nap or rolled off the couch.
Yeah. He looks very much like a shaved Yeti.
Yes.
And in a world in which Yetis are really not naturally aggressive creatures. Like, he really doesn't want to be fighting. He looks kind of like a bemused shaved Yeti.
Yeah.
It has to be said, too, though, that this is a battle of two of the most randomly entertaining heavyweights out there. Like, for a couple of... I mean, Mark Hunt has obviously... He's fought for an interim heavyweight title in the UFC, but for two dudes who've never held a belt or fought for the actual belt, these are two of the, like, best, weirdest heavyweights.
Mm-hmm. Two guys who have pretty much only ever given out or received strange beatings. Like, it's not really, it's a kind of weird that they ended up being in a fight that wasn't really a classic, because both of them, with very few exceptions, are in consistently exciting fights.
It's true. Now, Ben Rothwell's talking about some stuff, and we have this muted, so I have no idea what he's... I'm just going to assume he's talking about, like...
Chess.
There you go.
His passion.
He's still I can't remember, he still does come out with some crazy, like, because we think of like modern Ben Rothwell, you know, since the cape and the the weird post-fight stuff. He still came out with some real weird gems if you look back on his fights.
Been writing that Star Wars fan fiction for years now. that didn't come out of nowhere.
And the thing is, like, Hunt's walking to the cage. He looks in okay shape. Like, I mean, with
this
the t-shirt.
This was like the start of Mark Hunt's physical rebirth, when he decided to start taking his fitness seriously and actually showing up for his fights.
Yeah, like, where was he in the rebirth here? Because it started off when he knocked out Chris.
It was right after Kutcher, I think.
Yeah.
Hunt's always like, he's also one of those fighters where every single time he fights, you're always kind of looking really closely at his physique. It's like, how overweight does he look? How slim does he look? Does he look like he has trained at all for this fight?
Yeah. Does he look like a svelte 265, or does he look like he had to cut from 300 again?
Yeah.
Sometimes he kind of looks fatter, but also stronger. Other times it's like, is he looking a little flabby and not like he's thinner, but there's not as much muscle on his frame? Very confusing physique on Mark Hunt, the 5'10", 300-pound heavyweight.
It's also that much more confusing because he more or less has had that problem and looked that way for his entire combat sports career.
Even when he was like a 20-year-old kickboxing champion, he looked pretty much the same.
Yeah. So,
but this is a classic, like, heavyweight dad bod fight, though.
I
mean, like,
And I can't help but be excited for a Mark Hunt fight. Like I see him there, I'm just like, I'm so excited to watch Mark Hunt fight because
Mark Hunt and Matt Brown, man, are just like their recent fights are so sad to me because I was so emotionally invested in their comebacks, their late career comebacks when they were finally putting things together, and you just get these little glimmers that make it even worse. Like Mark Hunt having recent losses, but there's the Roy Nelson win in there, and he looked awesome, man, knocking out Roy Nelson, great fight, so on and so forth.
Melted Frank Mir.
Yeah, and for
really entertaining way.
For Matt Brown, he'll be really competitive in the Cerrone fight. Yep. A lot of people even giving him both of the first 2 rounds, and they still just have lost to Brock Lesnar, knocked out by Donald Cerrone. It makes it
knocked
all
out
more
by Jake Ellenberger.
I know, man.
Yeah, the Brock Lesnar one especially hurts because the UFC really just brought Brock Lesnar in to add some pay-per-view buys, and that's it.
Yeah, and then he beats the guy who really wants to do this shit.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't blame Hunt for being extremely salty after that, especially considering all the, the wacky USADA stuff which has circled around, and obviously Lesnar popping afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this is weird because these guys would both go on crazy weird runs. Mm-hmm. And after you watch this fight, you would have never ever thought it.
Yeah,
that's heavyweight though. I honestly, Mark Hunt probably sacrificed a couple more goats for this fight just to get him the push, and that's heavyweight division's always bananas. I mean, the idea that Ben Rothwell still submitted Josh Barnett is the craziest fucking thing.
Well, maybe the way to look at this fight then when we're rewatching it is to try and determine what in the style matchup here may have made it not fun when these guys match up so well with other fighters, or is it just bad kismet that the fight just didn't turn out good?
You know what I think part of it is, and what we're going to see here in a second, because I don't remember exactly, but I think a little part of it may be that Ben Rothwell is surprisingly light on his feet and huge. So unlike Stefan Struve or some of the other monolithic fighters that Mark Hunt has had to reach to punch up, Rothwell can actually get around a little.
Yeah, with his weird rhythm too, where it's actually surprisingly hard to track him down if you don't have a good reach on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that Hunt's normally been used to fighting mostly pretty stationary heavyweights, and Rothwell's got that kind of pouring, slapping, kind of slightly Foreman or Rumble-esque style, where he mostly uses his pouring to kind of lock up into the clinch. So I think that as Hunt rushes in, he's trying to rush in. He gets put in the clinch a lot. I think there's a lot of clinching. But yeah, this was also at altitude. This was the first one where they realized. Yep.
My apologies, Phil. Fight begins now. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, so this was the first one before, long before Velasquez Verdun, where they thought, what's great? Heavyweights at altitude.
Heavyweights at altitude.
I mean, and heavyweights at altitude is great. It has to be said, but it's not great it's great for a show like ours. It's exactly what we need.
Yeah. Honestly, the altitude cards are they can be pretty hit or miss. You get some fights like Ferguson, Dos Anjos, they're really startlingly good because both guys come in extra well prepared. But the last few high altitude cards have really not been that great. Mexico City, Denver, they're often kind of disappointing.
So you can see Hunt's landing his first shot, he's landing his jab, but when he actually steps in to swing for the second one, Rothwell's out of the way.
Just want to admire Ben Rothwell's footwork here. It's going to be the best footwork we see on this edition of the MMA Depressed until Jake Shields fights, of course.
Of course. There's a nice little walk-in left hook from Rothwell, nice little lead left hook.
He has found a style that works for him. It's just very weird and, it's idiomatic to Ben Rothwell. Nice counter right from Mark Hunt.
And this is also at the point where Mark Hunt is presumed to be instantly toast if you get him on the floor.
That's true.
And he goes for an armbar like when both guys are completely exhausted in this fight. I do remember that.
I mean, he's what one fight away from getting tapped out by, was it Moorcroft? Who was it that tapped
Christian
him out?
Moorcraft,
Yeah.
who has since then redeemed himself by being a hilarious like outer figure in the MMA sphere.
Rothwell hits a really nice takedown and moves directly into mount. So like those grappling problems aren't fixed. But then
the scramble from Hunt, which has been his savior these few years. It was, by the way, Sean McCorkle, not Christian
that's
Moorcraft.
the one. Yeah.
That's the guy who's been then a hilarious figure in the MMA.
Yeah.
Big Sexy. Got to follow Big Sexy on MMA Twitter.
That's right. Not Christian Moorcraft, Sean McCorkle, the other big, lurching, weird-looking guy.
Yeah. I really get those two confused a lot, and I apologize to them for it.
I remember McCorkle now better because wasn't he orange too? Like in that sort of what's his name?
In a Phil Baroni kind of way.
Phil Baroni or who's Eric Koch kind of way.
Akiyama.
Yeah, well,
a couple of orange fighters in the UFC.
It's true.
So it looked like Rothwell was thinking of picking up a Darce in one of those scrambles, but then he realized that Hunt has no neck.
A strength of Hunt too, man. Like, there is no one, I think, in the division, aside, I guess, from Francis Ngannou, who picked up takedown defense more quickly than Mark Hunt. And I think it's really because he has a physiological, he's
a weeble.
he's just well designed to be difficult to take down. Like, look at this. You get his leg up, and it's there's so much weight on his hips. You just can't do it. They're so low. Ooh. Oh, God, I love when Mark Hunt starts swinging bombs, man. Just gets me excited.
That's what's kind of gone. Unfortunately, you get to see what's gone away from Hunt's game too over the past couple of years, which is that speed change.
Yeah.
Where he leaped in with the jab, and it wasn't that fast, but the uppercut behind it was so fast you couldn't even see the hands move.
Yeah, and covering distance surprisingly quickly. That was a really nice, just like an underhook, and just knowing how to get low and push back is how Hunt stops these takedowns.
Yeah, and he got side control on Rothwell and then almost got taken down out of it, but they have now...
They're now both starting to look like they're breathing just a little hard.
Yeah.
And the scramble. Butterfly sweep.
Yeah.
Hunt lands a huge uppercut and tips over from the force of his own uppercut.
Mark Hunt's his sweep game and his takedown defense, his scrambling is basically like built on the same philosophy as Tim Boach's judo. It's like most of the technical details are not there, but you're really strong and you have the basics down.
Yeah, and now Hunt just fell over and is now getting elbowed, and I think probably that's what really makes this fight go downhill as quickly as it does, because the first round has been pretty entertaining.
Yeah, not bad.
But it's the fact not just that they're fighting at altitude, but that they're grappling at altitude.
Mm-hmm.
Two big heavyweights who spend a lot of time taking each other down, rolling around on the mats. Oh, jeez.
Dog's not happy.
No,
Dog
she's
is
not happy. Nobody's
about
happy.
This one.
Ben Rothwell's not happy. He's cut open now at the end of this round. And we have an awesome graphic of a pretty good takedown.
Yeah, that was pretty much because there's a weird combination of like, that's a really good takedown. Then later on, he tries a takedown, which like Mark Hunt stuffs. Yeah, that one. Like he just kind of stuffs it and then shoves him over. And then later on, there's just a takedown where, well, there's just a one or two where Mark Hunt just kind of falls over. He's still at that. Over. Yeah,
that was actually a pretty awesome though, like elbow to the top of the head, and then.
Yeah. If the right hand had landed, it would have been the exact shot that knocked out Frank Mir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Mark Hunt reminds me of a bear wrestling. Have you ever seen bears fighting? It's exactly what, like, they get taken down pretty easily, but they're really, really hard to keep down. They just roll around on their back, and it's suddenly you're on your back and they're back up on their feet.
Oh, yes, I actually do. I do know exactly what you mean, and
which means we need to see Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Mark Hunt. Just no other choice.
Oh, I would actually watch that fight.
Rise in 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm. And knowing Japan, they're gonna let him keep on the Dagestani hat while he's fighting too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, naturally.
That's his luchador mask.
So now we've gotten to the point where neither guy is really actually has any plan, it appears. Hunt is just kind of winging stuff when Rothwell lurches into him, and Rothwell is lurching into him.
Hunt still looks pretty explosive on the single shots and everything, but he's definitely having to gear up longer and longer between each one.
Yeah, Rothwell looks much less gassed, but he's just clearly not sure how to approach Hunt because Hunt is, Hunt will never get tired. Hunt will never get so tired that he can't knock you out.
Right.
That's like no matter how exhausted he is.
Right. Yeah, it does. It looks like, Rothwell's okay. It just looks like he's really surprised by the speed and the power of Hunt. He doesn't really know how to approach him without exposing himself. There was a little bit of a wide right from Rothwell that landed.
Yeah, after getting nearly buckled by a leg kick. Remember when Hunt used to kick really hard? We're getting that reminder too.
I think Bigfoot scared it out of him when he hurt his legs and stuff. Scared him out of that kickboxing game.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that we can see like out of the two, like the development. Ooh.
There's some huge shots from Hunt and a nice takedown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, outside trip straight into side control.
That's a pretty nice little series from Hunt.
Yeah.
Now the question is, does Rothwell immediately roll up for the Darce? No. See, Rothwell comes out of this like kind of funky jiu-jitsu gym in Chicago where they really like focus on that 10-finger guillotine from the front that he loves and he got Barnett with. It's like a big thing with them. And you could it's funny because you can see how much time he spends on his grappling that when he's one of the rare heavyweights that when he gets on his back doesn't immediately look to scramble up, but is instead like trying to create an arm bar here and like trying to look for a triangle. And
could you maybe call that the key reason why he lost to Mark Hunt? That Mark Hunt just refused. Ben Rothwell came into a fight wanting to grapple, but it was Mark Hunt who refused to stay on his back.
Yeah, that's I think part of it. I mean, maybe too that while Rothwell is he's a very good grappler in specific things like the guillotine and tapping Josh Barnett, he's maybe not as good a grappler off his back as he is comfortable off his back.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the frame to be a good grappler off his back, Yeah,
he's got a single he's got a couple of layers. If you put your head wrong, basically, when you're taking him down, he can choke you. But other than that, he's just relying on being big and very strong and actually pretty fast. And he's got much of a layered like takedown defense or scrambling game.
Right. And is there a worse position in which to rely on strength than guard?
Guard at heavyweight.
Well, too, like a lot of really good guard grappling. It's obviously there's a lot of technique in it, but a lot of really good guard grapplers are just really fucking flexible. And Ben Rothwell does not strike me as the most flexible man.
Doesn't strike me as a man who stretches very often.
Or even if he does, like he just has a really long torso and short limbs. And like
I need to see Ben Rothwell doing hot yoga. Like I just realized how much I need to see Ben Rothwell in a hot yoga studio. I need to see how flexible this expert grappler is. This is actually not a bad fight. This is all right. Mark Hunt's doing some good work from top position here.
Yeah.
Looks like he's trying to take the back here.
Yeah, he's scrambling really well, man. This is like he's a natural wrestler. This is how a wrestler would attack Ben Rothwell from this position. This is like a tired, stubby version of what Cain Velasquez did to Ben Rothwell.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good work from Mark Hunt from top position.
Definitely.
He went knee on belly, then into back ride and a solid one.
Got a nice waist cinch, keeps the strike, steps into mount. Look at this is good stuff.
Yeah. See?
It's also exhausting stuff.
Here comes. The armbar coming from a mile away.
Oh yeah, there we go.
He's working on it. Oh man, if he could just attack that wrist a little better, he could have gotten this. And he doesn't straighten his right leg out. I remember he doesn't correctly straighten his legs.
Well, he got it trapped under Rothwell's
everything into that though. Like,
why not though, man? Good round from Mark Hunt.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like this fight, both of these guys would actually develop a reasonable amount. Like, after this, but I feel like most of what would put Hunt on his run is already there at this point.
Mhm.
Whereas Rothwell, he kind of learns that.
Rothwell strikes me as one of those fighters like Fernando Gonzalez in Bellator. You know that dude?
Doesn't
Like he just lost to Michael Page in a completely god awful fight.
Didn't catch that one, unfortunately.
But
yeah, that may...
So he strikes me. Rothwell strikes me as one of those fighters who like he will always get better. Like he's just going to get better forever until he stops fighting, because all of his so much of his early success is just going to be based on being super tough and big and hard to hurt.
He got a much longer window of time in which to practice than most fighters get.
Yeah. So like he may have started as like this really funky, not very good, not very athletic fighter, but he gets 20 years to spend on like just plugging away at people. And so he's always going to improve in these weird little ways.
I like to imagine. Go on, please, Phil.
To be in all fairness, I think Rothwell is actually pretty athletic for a heavyweight.
He is.
He's pretty fast and obviously
he's got some real power in his hands. Like he doesn't really have to put a lot of weight into his shots to hurt someone. He has that kind of weird George Foreman-esque.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Blubbered.
I think he's pretty badly hurt by that.
And that was behind the ear.
And Mark Hunt is going for it.
Has Rothwell ever been finished apart from that like mercy stoppage against Velasquez? I'm trying to think.
I want to say Arlovsky knocked him out.
Oh yeah.
And he was knocked out with a head kick, I think, once really early in his career, but it's not been a lot considering how many shots he's absorbed.
Yeah, he's a stupid tough fighter.
At heavyweight, it's a pretty for a hittable heavyweight, it's a pretty low number.
And that's, I mean, honestly, like if you're not a physical Rothwell, surprisingly good. He's surprisingly light on his feet. That's the big thing. He's surprisingly light on his feet. But he's not, we're not talking like Alistair Overeem super athlete here.
No.
And if you're not a super athlete at heavyweight, durability is like what will make your career.
Yeah. Yeah, and he just hadn't developed that, like Connor was saying, the Foreman style yet. He hasn't. I think that's the biggest thing that's missing from his game is that thing. He kind of reaches out with one hand and he basically just touches you to be like, oh, his head's here, and then he punches all through it.
Yeah,
that is kind of not. He hasn't figured that out yet. He doesn't have that kind of wide, flat stance that he developed later on, and when he went on that little mini renaissance.
He's doing a little Ronda Rousey chase in there.
Yeah, there's a few touches of it at the beginning of this fight. There are a few touches of that touching, pushing, pulling style that he's got now. But he's a lot more.
Okay, this is getting into the good bad portion.
Oh my god, he's very limited to like the one stance and most of this and everything. It's not quite the Rothwell that's fighting today. And the Rothwell that's fighting today, I mean, I think is actually a very, very good fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both chasing each other around on their knees on the ground was pretty amazing.
They're both just kind of walking around, and Rothwell, to his credit, is still like doggedly shooting for these takedowns because he's clearly convinced himself that he does. You just need to go.
Oh my god! He's like zombie, man. He's a zombie.
He is so dead. Oh man. But that moment where they were crawling around after each other, it's like the exact same thing as when kids are playing, like pretending to be farm animals. That was the exact. Okay, now they're just hugging. This is just two tired big guys hugging it out.
Hunt, to his credit, is trying to.
He's not a very good hugger. I think that's really what we're seeing here. Is that Mark Hunt? When he's supposed to be hugging, he's actually punching a little, and that's not a very good hugger.
I like to imagine that Ben Rothwell is not just because of his eternal durability, is not just getting better and better, more so than other fighters ever would be able to, but that he also never stops growing. That he's probably like a foot taller today than he was then, and like 30 pounds heavier. And someday, when Ben Rothwell retires, it'll be because he's become so massive that he has to live in the sea.
He's going to turn into one of the Titans in Attack on Titan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the Book of the New Sun, he's going to have to become an unguent and live in the ocean to support his giant mass. Which is kind of how he looks right now. Like this Ben Rothwell would really love to lay in a tub for a little while.
Him and Nate Diaz.
There's definitely a Pacific Rim eldritch monster about him at the moment.
Dude, Mark Hunt
still throw?
Right, and he still has. You can see his huge power and speed.
Mark Hunt with the 3rd round head kick,
and the single leg.
And the single leg. Which he didn't get.
Which he gets sprawled on for.
I love
Rothwell going immediately back to the 10-finger yin.
Right, yeah,
he's going for the go-go choke, and he's bleeding all over him.
I really like Mark Hunt's cakewalk when he's really, really tired, where he can't bother to maintain his stance, so he kind of walks away from you and then suddenly turns around and tries to smack you in the face.
Yeah, it's one of. I mean, Mark Hunt, his fight game. It's one of those things where, especially what it became in the UFC, it's one of those things where even if it's got holes in it, it all fits together so well. Like every part of it flows into other parts.
He's like a really good Tekken player who's stuck playing like Dragunov.
Yeah,
or someone who's not very good, somebody who's stuck playing Kazuya, or someone who's pretty limited compared to the S-class characters, but he's good enough that he can make all of these limitations work for him.
Exactly.
Right hand, that's beautiful. Really not a terrible fight. 3rd round was just awful enough to make it to end on a funny note. First 2 rounds were pretty good.
Yeah, it was a fun fight.
Yeah, like it's pretty underrated as being it's a fun bad fight. Like I think the altitude certainly didn't help.
Yeah, but heavyweights at altitude are always going to gas. The best thing you can hope for is heavyweights who are going to continue trying to finish each other after they gas, and that's what we got. We got to see some nice determination from both guys.
Yeah,
can I say I like that modified salivary that Hunt got twice against the cage, where he kind of he was sort of kneeling on Rothwell's arm, and then trapping his other one against the cage. Like that was good stuff. Like Mark Hunt, grappling innovator.
Yeah, it's like some Mirsad Bektic type shit. Like he really gets that aspect of MMA. And if he'd started younger, he probably would have been a really solid heavyweight mixed martial artist.
Well, he did start reasonably young. He just didn't actually apply himself younger.
I mean, as a grappler though, like if he had started grappling back when he started kickboxing, Mark Hunt,
or back when he started MMA fighting, even like his MMA
right, he started grappling. Yeah.
It's not like he wasn't MMA fighting pretty early on. He just didn't really care. He just thought that it was kickboxing.
But even then, the innate talent, he almost Americana'd Fyodor Emelianenko.
I know.
Yep.
He still had flashes of brilliance then. And he beat Vanderlei Silva way back when he had no grappling experience. Huge size advantage, but still, that's impressive.
No.
The atomic butt drop fight.
Yeah, classic.
What better show of natural ability and creativeness than knowing to butt drop in an MMA fight.
When you know that you don't know how to grapple, right? Yeah. That's amazing. The confidence, the swagger it takes. Unfortunately, I get the feeling we're missing a really classic Mark Hunt post-fight interview here.
Of course, I know. Well, we can all love Mark Hunt for being Mark Hunt, and a fight that, while forgotten somewhat in his oeuvre, is pretty entertaining, all things considered.
He finishes his interview with like some Charlie Kelly fight moves there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right.
Camera kiss. Now we are on. No, it's not going to spend a lot of time. We can talk about it during the intro to our next fight, because we got to keep this moving. So we're now on to our bad fight: Jake Shields versus Tyron Woodley, and we are starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
It's all downhill from here, so there really is no point in delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, we've had our fun. We got to really enjoy a bad fight with two heavyweights crawling around on the mat after each other, and Ben Rothwell staggering around like he just returned from the grave. So now we get a welterweight fight that really as you say, like I part of me was thinking like, okay, it's Jake Shields and Tyron Woodley. Like these are both very good fighters. This shouldn't really be a disappointment fight. But you're right. There's not really any sense that the only disappointment is that Tyron Woodley didn't knock Jake Shields out in about 15 seconds.
Yeah, I think that was what everyone was pretty much expecting to happen. Because people were like,
the after Shields Ellenberger. So
this was the moment in Woodley's career, which, like in the beginning of Ryan Jimmo's UFC career, people who hadn't watched him in his previous organization expected really good things out of Tyron Woodley. Like they were introduced to him as a knockout puncher and hadn't seen him laying on top of Tarek Safadine, or it was basically the great fight with Marquardt, and then I think the knockout over, who did he knock out in his debut?
Huron.
Jake Huron, yeah,
Jake Huron. And so this is like a nice reminder to people who never really knew what Tyron Woodley was capable of how dull some of his fights were up to this point, combined, of course, with the titanic gravity of Jake Shields, where no matter who you are, you will end up fighting a Jake Shields fight if you step in the cage with him.
As we saw with GSP. GSP ended up in a Jake Shields fight. He won it.
It's going to be the worst fight. Unless you're John Fitch, apparently. It's going to be the worst fight of your career.
Yeah, I still want to see that fight. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen
John Fitch. He took a page out of GSP's book and looked pretty good, actually. Pretty damn solid.
Yeah, because I always felt like... Because I felt, and I guess a lot of people also would have felt the same, that Fitch had deteriorated kind of more than Shields had, and that would definitely be primarily why I would have expected Shields to kind of beat him relatively handily.
I mean, Shields was not far removed from beating Maya, who was still a contender.
Yeah,
I mean, once everybody knew that Fitch was on the cryptocurrencies, it kind of faith became pretty limited supply for the John Fitch fans of the world.
Yeah, not just like, oh, Connor, I think your mic's, oh no, it's back now. It's fine. Yeah, and it wasn't even like one of the regular like cryptocurrencies. It wasn't Bitcoin or like even.
It was like Dogecoin or something, like some really special meme focused cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it was something like Unicoin. It was something to do with like unicorns or something weird like that. Am I thinking? It wasn't like
the people who created spend their days mining unicorn turds.
Oh, Connor, your audio is killing us.
Yeah.
You may have to go out and come back in or something. I don't know. We have to. Hey, he dropped out. He'll be back. So we're getting Jake Shields in his walkout, the angry face, the always like. It is kind of. It still always is surprising to me, no matter how many times I've seen it. Like how much of a badass Jake Shields thinks of himself as, and sort of lives as in his day-to-day life outside of the ring. Because you really think of like Jake Shields as you think of him as this dude who like, oh, he's a martial artist, but he's not an exciting fighter, so he's really kind of more like the gentle martial artist. Yeah, I've trained a long time, I did jiu-jitsu, whatever, it's all cool. But he really like subscribes wholeheartedly to the Diaz brothers ethos,
while still having like the mannerisms of like entirely the mannerisms of a dork. Like
it's him and Gilbert, right? Him and Gilbert totally seem like they belong in a study hall somewhere, and yet both of them are very, very committed to the 209 philosophy. I mean, walking this weird line between the two.
Shields much more than Gil, though, I think. Right,
where Jake Shields is like out there throwing Starbucks lattes instead of bottled water and stuff like that. Like, it's just everything's a little bit off, like Conor McGregor is like whipping bottles at Nate, and Shields is like pathetically throwing a half full macchiato. Like, it's just, everything is not quite right.
Oh,
he's trying. Goddammit, bless him. He is trying.
Oh, I honestly, over my fandom and over my career of watching MMA, I have gained so much more respect for Jake Shields.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's one of those dudes that, as a casual fan, like you dip in, you're like, Jake Shields is so boring. And
it's the guys that are the easiest to hate that are the ones that you find yourself loving the most. Like when their careers are ending,
Yeah,
it's the Mike Goldberg effect. Like you really feel yourselves missing them when they're no longer at their peak.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah. It was. I think for me, it was when I wrote my fan post on him, and
A true classic.
know,
If people watching this haven't read it, the Bap Bap classic.
Yep.
when I was like, because that was when like a lot of people seemed really like they were expecting Ma to beat him, and I was thinking grappling isn't generally the way to beat Jake Shields, and I was expecting him to like it to be a like awful fight that people hated that would end up in a split decision. It was actually pretty good, but only if you really like grappling. But like after like it's when someone does that something like that, when you've got someone who kind of comes through when you like with you and Dan Kelly, for example, Connor, like when like this weird underdog comes through and wins in kind of the way you expect them to, you're like, yeah, that's my guy, you fucking freak.
So we've already had Tyron Woodley. Connor's already way off because he didn't.
I missed the start of the fight. I'm sorry.
We're 30 seconds in to the first round right now. Connor, you're fired. This is why Phil's taking your spot slowly but surely.
Yeah, I know. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But we've already had Woodley try and knock Jake Shields out twice now with big right hands.
Third time.
And it hasn't worked. And for folks at home, this is the stage in Tyron Woodley's career when if it hasn't worked by now, he's in trouble.
Yeah. So Shields has landed about 6 body kicks, and Woodley has landed 2 kicks, both of which look like they almost blew Shields off his feet.
Shields is not like most durable fighters. Like he looks like he's being hurt by everything.
He looks like he's about to cry, like a lot of the time, and that must be incredibly disconcerting. Like this guy I think it's one of the underrated aspects of Jake Shields, like, is just how terrified he looks a lot of the time in the cage. That the guy must be, the people he's fighting must be just like, okay, this guy can't punch worth shit. He looks like he's grappling himself, yet he just keeps gently punching me in the face.
Pound for pound,
Stop!
most startled fighter in the UFC. Akbar Ariola made a run for that title, but Jake Shields, I think, still has it on lock.
So now they've been in the clinch, and Woodley's landed 3 or 4 good hard punches, but Shields has landed about 30 little tiny chipping baby knees inside.
Yeah. He goes for a takedown, and he doesn't get it, which I'm not sure if he ever will, really. But it won't matter.
So easily stopped by like Tyron Woodley. He almost got hit by the takedown because he didn't realize it was happening. There was so little pressure being applied. But he reacted a second late and then just easily shut it down. Oh, this is great already, man. This is way better than I thought it would be. Jake Shields with like a one-footed slapping left hook on the retreat.
It's like but the thing is, it's like the GSP Shields fight, but like this is where you see, because you're watching a master at work. And this is
the GSP Shields fight.
This is Jake Shields
who didn't plan on beating Jake Shields. That's the thing.
But if you watch, I mean, because when you watch any GSP, any like great fighter going out there, there's always that frisson of you're going to get to watch greatness, whether it's a good fight or not. This fight is Jake Shields' masterpiece. Like this is his bappiest, like most. Like amazingly silly. Like
it's the fight. It's probably the one fight that he won that is the least defined by what he's actually good at.
Yeah.
Like there's no top control, no submission grappling, very little actual wrestling, and he wins the fight. It's really it's a testament to how clever Jake Shields' bizarre, janky style is. And I want to point out here that while nothing Jake Shields does looks natural or smooth or like he's done it before, his tactics all make sense. Like he builds his attacks intelligently. He works behind a really annoying peppering jab that doesn't hurt, but it's just constantly, it's almost because he doesn't have to put any snap in it or perhaps doesn't know how, that it's just kind of always like 6 inches or so from your face. It's very much like a Diaz brothers style of jab, but with a different end goal, which is, of course, this sort of stalling out wrestling in this fight.
And Tyron Woodley throwing some more big power hooks to the body, which it also feels like had that been on the liver side, that might really help. But on the left side, it's like, well, they look nice, but you're just getting kind of trapped against the cage and slowly pecked at. So
I think we're seeing too from Tyron Woodley here, this is actually kind of a difficult thing for him, because I think most wrestlers, when this was the single leg attempt they were on, would have given up and transitioned to something else like 30 seconds ago. And Jake Shields just keeps holding on to this really weak single, now this pretty flaccid over-under clinch, and just keeps pushing and holding on and just won't let go. He won't transition or try to explode because that's not his style.
A lot of fighters too, when they feel how powerful Woodley is, they just stop wrestling with him. Like, I'm not going to wrestle with this guy. I'm not going to go after him. He's too strong. And Shields, nope, just pecking away. Now, did Shields actually win that round? There's a question.
No. I don't think so. Not that one. I think he got the shot that Woodley landed, couple of right hands, couple of really hard body kicks.
Woodley way outlanded him for power strikes.
Yeah, but I think Shields may be the one guy who actually really gassed Tyron Woodley. Like, Tyron Woodley's issues with stamina have always been overblown. He's not as good as he is in the first round, but who is? But Shields, I think, already here at the end of the first round, this is more tired than Woodley was going into the fourth round with Stephen Thompson.
Well, it's a great case too, and this is one of the things I love about fighters and how they develop, is that people expect a fighter like Tyron Woodley, you say, oh, well, if he does X, Y, Z, he'll be way better. Like, if he fixes this problem and he changes that approach, he'll be a much better fighter. Tyron Woodley has become a much better fighter, but it's really been more about refining and getting better at the things he's already really good at already. And so often that's how fighters get better, is they don't fix their holes. They just make what they're good at so much better that the holes don't matter as much.
Yeah. He was just a right hand and a takedown and some occasional kicks back then, and he's still all of those things now. He's just got footwork. Like, that's the basic difference that he can.
And I think maybe he's a little more patient now, and it's still a flawed style with a very limited scope, but I think he's becoming more and more an expert in making that style work.
That kick just sent Jake Shields straight to that. But this is the thing you have to, like, this is why you love Jake Shields, is Jake Shields back up in half a second and pressing again, like pressuring without a hesitation after getting kicked so hard he fell down.
Jake Shields' defense to an uppercut there was to raise up really high on his toes to get his chin as far as possible away from Woodley's rising fist.
Yeah, well, it was like we said. I remember saying that during the GSP fight. Jake Shields always looks like one of his feet is a Heeley, like the little roller skate.
Looks like he's wearing surprise roller skates.
Yeah, and so one foot is just always like skating off in one direction in the middle.
Whichever foot he needs to plant his weight on most is the one with the wheel on it. We got a lot of people were really, not a lot, but a few people were really upset about the way that we teased Jake Shields. But you have to know, like, it comes with the most love I have for any fighter. Jake Shields, his style is undeniably goofy. You cannot watch Jake Shields' fighting and say that he looks like he knows what he's doing with his striking. And making fun of it just makes me appreciate his success more, because it's so unique and weird, and he's so very successful as a fighter.
And as we can see now, like, Woodley hasn't been punching much in this clinch, and he hasn't been kneeing much, and Jake Shields is pressing and chipping away just like he was in the first round. Of course, now Woodley's landing some big, hard knees, and Jake Shields is punching him in the cup a bit, but just like softly punching him.
Woodley kind of shaking his head looking around at the ref a bit, like, is he doing this?
He couldn't really complain too hard though, because it was Jake Shields hitting him in the cup.
Yeah, it wasn't hitting hard enough in the cup to make it count.
But see what I mean? Woodley's expecting here. It looks like he's expecting some kind of transition that he can explode and exploit that momentary opening in a link of the chain, and instead it's just like Jake Shields just continually pushing into the same position, all while chipping away with these borderline pathetic knees to the leg that are really doing nothing but just annoying Woodley.
And he's actually wrestled
Nice.
Woodley to the ground with
Snapped him down off a arm-in guillotine.
a really poor guillotine that Woodley had defended
Yeah.
all the way, but it just pressured Woodley to his knees.
And is now kneeing him in the shoulder.
He could be kneeing Woodley in the face right now, and I'm not sure that Woodley would. I think he did knee him in the face just there, and I don't think Woodley noticed. I think he kneed him in the head once.
Woodley's facial expressions in this fight are fun to watch, because like at the beginning he's like, all right, I'm going to get this guy. Then like later on in the first round, he's just a little bit kind of like, he doesn't seem to be out of there yet. And then there's certain points you see in the clinch where it's just, the sheer confusion starts to set in. And he can still, he still managed to kick the Heelys back there on that leg kick.
He's got a very expressive face already, so there's maybe no better fight where you get to watch someone enjoy someone's just sheer bafflement at what is happening to them as Jake Shields slowly takes the fight out of their hands.
Jake Shields has landed 13 significant strikes and probably about 600 strikes overall.
But Woodley's only landed 2 really good shots in this round, as far as I can recall.
Yeah.
He dropped Shields with the leg. He's landed a few better knees in the clinch. I mean, it's hard to call this a Shields round, but the I guess the front headlock to take down the knees was pretty significant. A knee to the groin from Shields right there in that.
It's also just really hard to be impressed with anything Woodley's doing. Like the mere fact that he's hitting Shields harder is just, as a fight fan, that's just natural difference. Whereas tactically, Shields is actually the one kind of who seems to be getting to do what he wants to do more often.
Yeah. And it ends on both of them punching the air 2 feet in front of him, and
real good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this.
So what? I guess that's a Shields round, but not.
It's not a round. I mean, I would call it a draw round, really, but
it's a draw round. You
can understand the round going either way.
This is a Pettis Alvarez fight, I think. This is. I remember it as such anyway. In that it's a round where it's a fight where I never really remember being super convinced that Shields won, but he was obviously the one who made his game plan work more. At the end of it, I just thought you probably deserve to win that, Woodley, for that even being close.
It's one of those fights too where it reminds me of like Kyle Noak, Alex Morono.
Yeah, that too.
Much better fighters, where you're just like, okay, maybe technically Jake Shields didn't win this fight, but Tyron Woodley sure didn't win it.
Yeah.
Like you sometimes you want the person that you were less disappointed in to win, even if that's the only metric you have to go by. And we've now gotten to the point of lack of entertainment that Connor has actually left the room. So
now he's missing this though.
He is. He should be. He should feel ashamed. Slight shame. More shame than normal. So Woodley just looked like he tried a calf kick there, or like one of those John Jones-esque front kicks that would do more to a lesser man, frankly.
Yeah. Shields hasn't really got the BAP going yet in this fight, but he's starting to now. He's starting to land that deadly jab.
He's starting to consistently kickbox at range. I think see that Woodley has lost confidence in his ability to stop him. And another little groin shot. Another one in there from Shields.
And for another man, that would have been a well-timed takedown entry. Jake Shields hit a moment ago. Just didn't materialize into a takedown.
I guess we know, too, from the GSP fight that Shields really is just a dirty son of a bitch for how much he eye pokes. But there is sort of a sense, too, where you're not sure if Shields is being dirty or just sloppy.
It's that line again, right? Like, he's kind of the gangsterist fighter while also being the least dangerous. It's like he's the most fouling, least dangerous fighter in the game. Like, you don't know how to feel about him as an opponent.
Because I think there's been like 3 or 4 cup shots that he's hit Woodley with that Woodley's just kind of shaken off
I swear he didn't knee him in the head when his hand was down before. Like he went for one little tap before he let Woodley stand up again. I may have misseen it, but I'm pretty sure that was there.
So Woodley actually looked like he landed a good hard shot.
Yeah.
But once again, Shields he doesn't, unless you knock him out, he's never going to stop pressuring you.
I like the annoying palm he puts on Woodley's face when he goes for his left body kick, where he's
it's right there.
Kind of posting, but also kind of threatening to rake his eyes.
Shields' body kick is also, I think, his only strike, which looks like it hurts at all. I think.
Yeah, and even then, compared to the body kicks that Woodley has landed in this fight, it's huge disparity.
I also love that Shields tried, like, he tried this waist lock into stepping over into the outside trip like 16 times in this fight, and it never once worked. It was great.
He just keeps going for it, man.
I mean, that's the thing, is that Woodley keeps expecting Shields to adjust in some way. And Shields is just like, no, I'm going to do is I'm going to bap into range, I'm going to clinch, I'm going to knee you like 500 times. Each one
it's not even like he says, no, I won't adjust. It's more like, no, I haven't even got started doing what I was supposed to do yet. Like he's still building up to phase 1. How can he adjust to phase 2? He's like a car that just starts in...
Whoa. That was
whoa,
nice,
huge spinning back fist from Woodley that Shields once again just shakes off like it's nothing and goes back to pressuring him. And I mean, it is really hard for me to call this a Shields round because he's getting hit with all the hard shots. But you do, I was talking to Phil about this while you were up, but you really don't want to give Woodley credit for a fight where he performs this poorly. And that's more what it is than anything else. It's not.
It's almost like I just feel like Shields should just get every win where the other guy looks bad, because that is his special power, is just making you turn in the worst performance of your career against him.
Yeah.
I think if you look bad against Jake Shields, just consider it a loss, because he did what he came in to do, right? He made you look really, really bad. That's it. Goal accomplished.
At this point, I have no way to give Shields this round so far.
It kind of feels like Tyron Woodley's won this fight, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But Tyron Woodley doesn't feel like he's won this fight.
No. Again, there was a huge left body kick from Tyron Woodley.
Yeah. He doesn't even look that tired, frankly.
No.
He just doesn't look like he knows how to
look at that.
Shields.
Snapping off that triple jab, Jake Shields.
Circling, angling out, landing the triple jab.
Oh, look at that takedown attempt. Just beautiful.
Getting clubbered by a couple of right hands.
Oh, yeah.
Little pecking uppercuts.
Look at him only surviving because he doesn't tuck his chin the way fighters are supposed to. The only reason he avoided those uppercuts. Oh, man, this fight.
That may have been almost more of a good bad fight in the end.
Pretty enjoyable to me. I
think was.
For most people, that's bad. I don't think most people have watched enough footage as we have to develop this sort of like perverse, masochistic fascination with Jake Shields.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen, honestly, I would have liked to have seen a bit more Jake Shields kickboxing. I love Jake Shields kickboxing.
I would have liked to see 2 more rounds because I think he was really getting into a groove.
I would score that 30-28 Tyron Woodley, though, probably.
Can we do an all Jake Shields episode someday?
I think we could.
I mean, he's got a really prolific career. There's a whole wide variety of fights of his that we could choose from.
Yeah, I think we could make that happen.
The thing is, a lot of Jake Shields fights aren't that bad. A lot of them are pretty fun. Most of them are pretty fun grappling matches. I'm trying to think, the boring ones. I think the Campman fight's pretty fun. I think the Maya fight's pretty fun. His grappling matches in Strikeforce.
I think we have a good bad option in his, or maybe a bad option. His fight with Mayhem Miller. That was a pretty weird, funky fight.
I don't remember it being awful. I remember it being he almost gets tapped. He almost gets tapped at the end of one of the rounds.
All right. Well, Connor's he's going to come back in a second, but we need to keep this moving. We can talk about Jake Shields fights for hours, I realize, but we've got one more fight to go. and it's going to take a while, and this is going to be the actual, the cherry on top, the shit cherry on what has been a surprisingly delicious Sunday so far. So
yeah,
we're now moving over to Dan Severn versus Ken Shamrock, UFC 9, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So I have actually rewatched this. It's been a couple years now, but this is tough. And you can see people are excited. The crowd is full. This is still when the UFC is this novel blood sport that people are really into. They're building up pay-per-views. This is before they've gotten all the blackout. Oh, this is the start of it. Obviously, word spreading enough that backstory.
The old logo.
I know. I love that old logo.
They use that old logo on a new poster, by the way. I think the next event has the old logo as part of the. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, check it out.
The backstory here being that just before they're going to put this event on, the state threatened to shut down the UFC event. And the only way they'd let the fights go is if they did not allow punching to the head, among some other rules as well. Now, most of the fighters just ignored this because I believe the UFC kind of told them, like, look, they're not going to actually be able to prosecute you for whatever you do. But Ken Shamrock, being a man of his word and full of honor and a true samurai, said, no, I will not punch. And Dan Severn, being a big, chunky wrestler, had no idea how to punch. And that brings you the fight we are about to enjoy.
Gotta love that get up from Ken Shamrock. That is some. I wish we could see more like sneakers and double bright colored knee braces in the UFC.
That's one of the things I've been loving about Ryzen is they're bringing that kind of shit back. You got dudes fighting in shoes. You got
girls literally wearing lingerie. That is that it was actually.
So Andy Anderson, a white supremacist who got eventually arrested for drug trafficking, he was at ringside at every UFC event, and for a lot of these, he supplied the ring girls from his all-nude steakhouse in Texas.
Yeah.
And so they are the trashiest ring girls imaginable.
I mean, the girls seemed pretty. They seemed pretty, but the way that they're dressed is not what you expect. I mean, ring girls are already a pretty weird and outdated custom, so to put them in actual lingerie just feels like a step too far.
And
Fight begins now.
Yeah.
Oh, those stances. Some classic MMA shit, boys.
Yep. Catch wrestling versus folk style. Old dude versus less old dude. I mean, Dan Severn, we have to remember that Dan Severn fought for like 50 more years after this fight took place. And I realize this fight's only 20 years old, if that, but 20 years old, but 50 years afterward, Dan Severn was still fighting. So
Severn's footwork looks okay here.
Yeah, he's got the hopping.
Moving away from Shamrock's deadly right hand. As you can see, is ready for a vicious slap.
Shamrock, his arms are so huge at this point that he could actually, like, at some point too, like, you have to wonder, could he actually functionally punch for more than a minute at any time? Like, watching his fights from this point, because his arms are just so ridiculously muscled and heavy that, like, there's no way to support holding them up and throwing punches with them.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost Phil, so Phil hopefully will be back with us soon.
Passed out forehead first onto his keyboard.
Phil has decided to check out of this horrible mess that we are putting him through, and it should be noted to date, not one punch has landed. Shamrock just threw one that Severn ducked out of the way of. So we have yet to have the first strike landed of our fight as of now.
Oh my God, there's 37 minutes. Phil's here, but no video.
You with us, Phil? Oh, there you are.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm back.
So we haven't had a punch landed. And
Do we have a clock?
Yes, we're at 37 minutes right now.
Your clock is just the below clock. We don't have an actual clock.
37 minutes remaining, that is.
Yeah.
So
Shamrock went for a sort of an uppercut slap there. He actually did go for like a Boss Rutan-esque wrist uppercut.
Yeah, and so because we are still in the NHB era, Shamrock is going bare. He landed first strike. He landed a palm strike.
Yep.
First punch landed of the fight. And so Shamrock has that pancrase Bass Rutan style, the palm slaps. He's like a really trim, slow E Honda.
Somehow both more in shape and less effective than E Honda.
That's right. And Severn, for his part, is actually wearing MMA gloves, but not because he has no idea how to punch. He's just not doing that.
Who was it that first started wearing MMA gloves? Was it Tank?
Tank Abbott.
Yep. Yeah, he was one of the first. Battlecade, I want to say it was. It was John Peretti's organization that was going on at the same time before he moved over and became UFC matchmaker. They had the 5-minute rounds and the gloves and all of that. But
Tank was the first guy in the UFC, as I recall, who decided he opted to wear them when they were still a choice.
I think there may have been somebody earlier, even.
Maybe right.
But it was like Joe Charles or somebody, I can't remember, some really random figure early on.
They were probably like those Bruce Lee gloves with like the finger, finger attachments on them.
Yeah, it was something like, I can't remember now. I did a whole bunch of trivia about this at one point that I wrote, and I can't remember it now. It's been too long.
So far, Shamrock is effectively outslapping Dan Severn. He has actually landed, I think, the best shots with these palm strikes.
In that he has landed two now. He landed a lead left slap and a right slap earlier, and Severn has not, in fact, thrown any slaps.
Yeah, there was one there that was a wind up right, and it really was more of a slap with the fingers, but it did smack Severn's head around a bit.
So yeah,
we're gonna be here for a while, aren't we?
This doesn't change a lot. So.
No one has any goal. Like no one has anything they're working towards right now.
No,
this is such an aimless fight.
I honestly don't know why Severn has chosen not to wrestle at all, because he doesn't have a punch plan of attack. And like I say, Shamrock took he seems to have taken this whole edict that you are not allowed to throw closed-fisted strikes to the head of your opponent. He took it really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can doubt Shamrock's word there because he's a little crazy in a fun way. I like the dude, but I think he really did take it very seriously. Like, no, I am not allowed to punch. The rules are no punching, so I will not punch. I will follow the rules.
I'm just kind of hypnotized into seeing how often Shamrock will leave the globe that he's standing on. Now he's standing on the world.
It looks like he's actually thinks he's about to fall off the edge. Like he stopped every single time.
Yeah, exactly, right?
That perimeter.
He actually did land a shot there, and Severn threw a shovel punch of all things. Of all the strikes he could have chosen to throw, he threw a super awkward shovel hook.
Shamrock refuses to leave that logo. He thinks he teetered at the edge of it.
It's like the outside of it is like, no, there's no way he's going there. He's not going outside the logo, but even like the outer ring outside the globe, it's like it's hot. You can only stand on it for like a couple of seconds before he needs to rush back to the safety of the world, which is being beaten like a tabla drum.
The rest of the cage is lava, and Shamrock is winning because he is not stepping in the lava.
Exactly.
It really looks like he is also waiting for Dan Severn to melt to death.
Yeah.
He's expecting it to happen at any moment. He's just standing on that furnace-like heat of that open lava pool.
And there's an eye poke for which Severn gives a head shake admonishment to Ken Shamrock.
Like, come on, man. We were having a good fight. A good, clean fight up till now.
And maybe it's, fair that Shamrock expects Severn to melt, because Severn does look a little melty. I mean, he does have this melted Freddie Mercury look about him.
The other question I have to ask is, do you think Shamrock would allow himself to step out onto the giant distended fist of the bald?
Does he consider it
White
to be like a
Galacticos.
peninsula, or
Yeah,
is it
right?
is it not stable?
See, he just stepped out onto the elbow there. I think I might be a slightly different.
He was testing it with his.
So when Severn crosses around to it, that's when Shamrock can actually step out and throw a combination because he actually.
But he's giving. I mean, he's giving Shamrock exactly what he wants right now. He's getting to plant his feet right on the globe. Phil, if you're wondering, we're at 31:30 remaining, or we just passed that mark.
Oh, wait a minute.
Off.
Oh yeah, I think I'm pretty close to where you guys. I think I'm not.
We
quite,
should all
but...
be in the same.
Yeah.
His feed dropped, but he started the video at the right time.
Yeah.
So, hey,
my internet
right hand landed by.
My internet died completely, so I had to restart everything.
He had to reopen the fight pass.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
31 minutes and 5 seconds, just so you know.
Yep. I think I'm very slightly behind, but only by like a second.
You're good. I mean, you're not going to miss. It's not really a blink kind of fight.
Yeah, it is a blink constantly. This is the fight where you could. I love.
Who is that?
I think that's Funaki, isn't it?
Oh, his hair was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, Shamrock he's venturing out onto the bicep.
Like that's Shamrock with the actual JMMA catch wrestling pancrase legends in his corner there for this, because he was I mean, like his pancrase fights were pretty damn fun. Like win or lose, those old pancrase matches are pretty awesome.
I'm guessing that Shamrock cut himself with his own fingernail at some point, because I don't think Dan Severn's landed a punch yet.
I don't think he has either. So that may be because his thumbs are up and open.
He cut himself with his own hand.
Yeah, he may have actually got his hand slapped into his face, sliced his cheek open with his own thumbnail. Also, it does make him look mean, though.
Yeah.
Severn's really working up a sweat.
Oh, jeez. You're buzzing, Connor. You have to mute. Although it is the most exciting thing that's happened in the past couple minutes.
Am I still buzzing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if rope escapes were possible for this fight, if that would liven it up. Like, if the potential for a rope escape were there, would they try to grapple more? No?
That looks sort of, yeah. I don't know. I think they might have just decided that this was how it was going to be. Did Shamrock just landed what looked almost like a punch?
Yeah, he's had a few slaps. Once every 3 or 4 minutes, he lands a good hard palm strike.
Did it look like he closed his fist?
Your mic's still making crazy noises.
I really like Shamrock's head fakes too. You'll notice because he's got this going, and then he'll lean in and he'll just go like this, and then he'll go back out, and that's the whole head fake there. Yeah. So I think we just got an admonishment of some sort telling them they actually are supposed to have to actually fight in some way.
Why did they used to make Big John wear what appears to be like a cut-off V-neck? It looks like they took a regular shirt and cut a V-neck into the collar.
I actually have the feeling that Big John probably got his shirts and cut them himself.
Prepped it, took the sleeves off, cut the neck open.
Yeah. In the future, I think in the future he went to polo shirts that had the little V-neck in it. So I'm guessing at this point they gave him a pretty plain T-shirt, and he's like, "Dude, this is not chill enough for me. I got to cut this open. I'm going to be doing some bench later, and I really need this to breathe a little better." So
yeah, that combination of gym bro attire with the latex gloves is very unsettling. It's it suggests that some foul play is going on.
See, Shamrock's getting a chance here to wander onto the elbow again. He's not taking it. Oh, there. Oh
my God. He stepped off of the center logo.
Stepped onto the exclamation, the shard that's coming off that's kind of breaking off from the earth.
Yes.
Can we talk?
It really kind of looks like the guy in the logo is fucking the globe, doesn't it? Not that I take a good long look at it. I didn't realize he was standing on something behind it.
You know what? If you consider that where his hand is, there's like an imaginary ponytail. Sure, I can see that.
He's got his feet planted on something. Like he's getting some torque in there. There are 26 minutes left. This is truly the worst fight we have ever watched on this show. Nobody has any goal. No one is moving towards anything in this fight.
Oh, I'm so glad we did this.
Oh my god!
I mean, like,
Shamrock threw a punch too.
What the hell? Two
Something
punches
almost
in
happened.
a row. Yeah, the little door slaps, and we've got like.
I love one of the things I really do love about this era of MMA, and I wish we could get back though, is, and you'll see if they pan over again, is that I believe it's Funaki in Shamrock's corner. He is up on the cage, like yelling through it on the ring side with his hands in the cage.
Yeah.
And I really wish we could get that kind of excitement back in for like cornermen, that you could be up on the ring side. Because that was always like, I remember in one of Chemo's early fights. And of course, this is part of the Chemo Joe Sun show before we knew what a crazy, crazy, horrible person Joe Sun was. But Joe Sun was just like clinging to the cage in the corner, screaming at him. And man, we need to get some of that back.
One of the cornermen here is wearing a Meridote pants. He's wearing like actual Napoleon Dynamite karate pants.
Yeah, the Rex Kwon Do outfit.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. I need to see more corners like that. Also, I cut out my like I said, my internet cut out, but the ring girls were wearing just like underwear, right?
Yeah, actual lingerie.
Yeah.
Do you need another timestamp, Bill?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
I think like I said, I'm about a second out. It's fine.
And you'd say that the sport has really evolved since then, but I remember I watched a Romanian MMA event like 2 weeks ago. Lingerie ring girls.
Do you not get the emails advertising for the lingerie fighting championship?
I do get those emails. I really wish I could get myself taken off that mailing list of all.
Yeah, but I get them a lot. So it's apparently a very successful running franchise in Vegas.
I wish that surprised me more.
That logo looks worse every time I see it. Why is its head so bulgy?
Yeah, it's not a very good logo.
Here's the question. Is it Jeff Monson pre-tattoos, or is it a Tito Ortiz premonition?
The head isn't big enough. Like, for Tito, it would have to be several
times larger than the globe that it is hovering over.
It really does look like the head is like expanding rapidly.
Like the only funny joke in Scary Movie 3, which is just that the sheriff's hat, every time they cut away and cut back, that brim of the hat gets a little larger until it's just comically oversized. I like to imagine that every time we cut away from this, I mean, there's not a lot of cutting going on in this fight, let's be honest. The cameramen have a pretty easy night here. But every time we cut away, that head is just a little bit larger. A little more like Tito.
Oh my God. We actually got a shot from Dan Severn under a Tito Ortiz strike and a takedown. An effective takedown.
Oh my God.
But Dan Severn, his knee braces came off and he had to back up.
He's tired. I think he also got slapped pretty hard while going for that takedown. He got boxed on the air pretty hard and almost looked like he kind of lost his equilibrium when he got his hands around the knee.
Yeah,
something happened.
I think that's what we're gonna. He's not gonna think like, okay, yeah, that almost worked. Let's go back to that.
And a punch, an actual close-fisted punch from Ken Shamrock.
It almost landed.
It landed.
This little cocky body language from Shamrock is great. Like the eyebrows up, he's sort of like moving his head, even though he has no idea how to box.
I think one of the points you were dropping out, I was talking to Phil about how much I love Ken Shamrock's head feints because they're just this. Yeah. They're like, that's the head feint.
And those same head movements never ever happen in response to an actual strike.
No, it's never like let me slip something or let me actually throw something after I faint or
It's like Shogun Hua, like it's totally fabricated just to give you something to look at as an opponent that kind of looks like boxing. Totally fabricated.
Oh,
How is Dan Severn so tired?
I think it's because I think he's been moving to his wrong, like moving away to his wrong side. I mean, he's been trying to move away from Shamrock's right hand, obviously, but it's not a natural movement for him to circle right. Like it'd be much more natural for him to circle left. So he's been circling to an awkward angle the whole fight, and it's probably just wearing out his legs because he's never stopped moving for a second.
And he goes for a takedown, ends up on bottom.
Yeah.
With Ken Shamrock
mounted,
smothering him with his breasts right now.
Oh, yeah, that was
Dan Severn's nose and mouth just pinched between his pectorals.
This is also about the point too where the UFC was starting to figure out that Dan Severn was not going to be their next star. Because they had really thought that, Dan Severn will be our next guy after Royce Gracie. And this is, Shamrock beat him once. And this is the second, this is sort of the nope moment. The real, like, no, not going to happen.
Yeah, he kind of went for a take. It was like kind of going for a single leg, but also just sort of falling over when he went for it.
They've both been like low singles, which is a takedown you almost never see anymore.
Yeah. And goes for a couple of elbows to the top of the head, but I think the real damage is the psychological damage from the pec smothering.
Look at
the nipple.
Shift to get as much pectoral mass onto his face as possible.
Look at the depth of Shamrock's upper torso. It's like a 2-foot span between like his shoulder blades and his nipples. He's huge. He's like an actual barrel inserted into a human skin. Look at this. That is not a naturally muscled man.
So you have to think too, like,
posturing up.
He's going crazy.
We're actually getting some strikes, some actual good body punching from Ken Shamrock, posturing and mount. It's not just going for the Akabono smother.
He hammered Severn's ribs there with some good shots.
He did. Get that chin in the eye. Classic catch wrestling, dirty pool from Ken Shamrock. But
Speaking
of course,
catch wrestling, you know what I'd rather watch than this? I just would rather watch TJ Dillashaw going for a rolling calf slicer. I would watch that on loop about 10 times before I watch this fight one more time. That is the kind of catch wrestling I want to see in the octagon.
What about if it was just like TJ Dillashaw like walking his dog or going roller skating? How about TJ Dillashaw at the roller skating?
I think I'd probably rather watch that. I mean, let's pose this question because there's really no other way to discuss this fight. We got this question on Heavy Hands recently, but I'm curious to know who you think is the smallest man who would beat Ken Shamrock in this fight. The smallest current fighter who would have enough skill to overcome. Like, would TJ Dillashaw be able to beat Ken Shamrock in an unlimited time limit early UFC bout?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. I think I'd take most everyone. Maybe not like some of the smaller. I mean, I'd take like. Would I take Joseph Benavidez to beat him? I think I might.
Oh yeah, I'd take anybody. I mean, I'd take Mighty Mouse certainly.
This is probably like a 280-pound Ken Shamrock, though.
So,
I mean, a big dude.
It's not a dude who knows. Like, this is an era in which, like, what Ken Shamrock would have to get them down and lay on them. Like a lot of his submission skill, which he didn't, he didn't have none, but it was literally about like guys not knowing how to defend submissions. And so I can get these funky leg locks or playing under pancrase rules where it's like you get rope escapes and people are wearing these big boots that you can latch onto and having clothing and all that. So like even a tiny, even TJ Dillashaw would be able to scramble out from under him. And
I just had the best idea. Like if it existed, imagine if you could transplant John Lineker back to like UFC 1, and if he won it, just by being John Lineker.
He would just be guillotining all the wrestlers, knocking out all the grapplers.
It would be beautiful.
It'd be amazing. But put Justin Gaethje in UFC 1 and you would have a revolution in combat sports entertainment.
You'd also have a death, actual death.
Like Justin Gaethje would somehow absorb enough strikes to kill 3 of his opponents, but he would kill at least 3 of his opponents.
Because I mean, that's one of the things too that Dan Shamrock reversed.
Scrambled out of mount, ended up in guard.
Yeah, he's reversed him. Ken Shamrock is now in a closed guard with his shoes on.
Going for some headbutts, and there we got a good headbutt in on Shamrock's cheek a little bit ago. There we go.
Dan Severn in top control, like he knew how to work. He wasn't doing nothing. He didn't have great punching mechanics from any position ever,
as he just demonstrated.
But this is the thing that he's good at. This is the one thing he's actually good at.
But he knew how to apply pressure. He was a great pressure wrestler from top.
Yeah.
But one of the things I remember too, watching these old shows, you get around to like Ultimate 96, I think. I can't remember. It was like the second Ultimate, I believe. And this is like right before they started to implement rules. And you watch that event, and you really do start to get the feeling that somebody will die soon. Like, if they just keep going with like no rules and letting whoever wants to fight and whatever, somebody is gonna die. Well, I think it's around the point that Tank Abbott flatlines the Dominican cab driver who's fighting in a t-shirt, and the guy's just stretched out going like that doing the dap, and Abbott's over there shaking to mimic him. And you're like, you know what? Somebody is about to die in this cage if they keep getting, because the talent disparity they were starting to get once they got wrestlers coming in, like suddenly the physicality, people who'd actually trained athletically their whole lives and not just did a Meridote their whole lives. We actually have a round break now with 14 minutes left. The physicality difference that you started to get, and people who actually knew how to use that physicality, you put UFC fighters today in these classic fights, and they would probably kill somebody.
Yeah.
Really, honestly.
Rory McDonald would get his wish.
That's right. I used to think Rory McDonald, like people were making that up, like Rory McDonald, he had the dead-eyed look and that he wasn't that creepy a dude. Man, his Twitter account really just verifies every stereotype anybody ever put towards him.
It's great, man. He would get the wish to have the no rules fight that he's asked for. Also, the secret wish that he doesn't tell people about, which is to kill someone. He would totally get to enjoy both of those.
To kill somebody in public. Let's be clear.
to kill someone, mostly get away with it. That's what Rory McDonald really wants.
Killed somebody in private plenty of times, for sure. But in public,
killed plenty of people in private.
So yeah, we've had a round break now, which has resulted in exactly the same fight we were already getting.
It's like they had to restart the whole process.
We had some grappling for a bit there. That was great. Now we're back to
pretty good fight. It was a pretty fun fight for 2 minutes to end the 30 minutes that we've already seen.
Yeah.
But if you closed your eyes for the last 10 minutes and opened them again, you would not know that anything had transpired.
I have a strange relationship with this era of MMA because most of my favorite aspects of modern MMA, they tend to happen in like the striking and ground and pound. And I tend to think of older fights like this, early Pride events, early UFC events as including a lot of grappling, but really the grappling is the only thing about this fight that's actually any good.
Yep.
And it's because nobody in this era knows how to strike. You're not getting any pedigreed strikers of any kind in mixed martial arts. So the only time anyone has any clue what they should be doing to win the fight is when it's on the ground.
Or if you do get pedigreed strikers, they did get some. It should be noted. Like some of the guys that had pedigree, they just had no clue how to do anything else at all.
Yeah. You got no strikers with the necessary grappling base to compete.
Like Art Jimerson, for all the shit he got, he was actually a pretty damn good boxer when he went into the UFC. Like
he just really didn't want to be there. Like
Yeah.
I think he signed on a contract and then kind of forgot about it. And then
Yep.
they're like, oh yeah, remember that UFC thing? He's like, oh shit, really? Okay, I'm gonna go in and tap in 30 seconds.
Yeah, he didn't want to be there.
The one boxing glove though, it was awesome.
Classic.
I
move.
know. I think it was Orlando Viet was another guy. He was like a Muay Thai fighter from the Netherlands, and he was a pretty good Muay Thai fighter. And like some of the kickboxers they were getting too, like they may not. Some of them were past their prime, but they were getting guys who had legit like world kickboxing experience and who'd competed on a big stage, even if they weren't the best at it. They got good fight. Honestly, in some of these the first couple UFC events, they really got the best like random martial artists they could. It's just nobody had any clue what they were signing up for at all.
So how far would CM Punk go in UFC 1?
About as far as he did in UFC.
Yeah, everyone was bigger, so I think he'd get smashed.
Everyone was, like he wouldn't have had any better time grappling against Royce Gracie.
Oh no, I'm not saying he would have. I'm wondering whether could he have beaten anyone at UFC 1?
I don't know. Maybe some of them, but I mean, he'd have the same level. He'd have the same level of skill he has now, but he wouldn't even enjoy any kind of size advantage, unlike the other very skilled small fighters we were conjecturing for. He would go in there, be not very good, and still get out muscled by Ken Shamrock.
And you had guys too, like who's the Dutch grappler? Who fought Royce Gracie in one of the early events? I can't really look it up that easily, but let me see. I can look this up, but
you're gonna miss all the excitement, Zane.
I've actually put the screen over you guys, so I can't see you guys while I do this. I can see the fight. The fight's the important part. That's where all the awesome action's going on. But you had guys like Remco Pardo early on, who was like a pretty good grappler. He was 6'2", 250 pounds as like a pretty decent grappler. And he gave Royce Gracie a pretty decent fight even.
Yeah, judo and jiu-jitsu background.
And like, what's CM Punk gonna do? Like, he's not a boxer. Is he gonna out-grapple this dude?
My prediction is he would try to throw a right hand and then get taken down.
Or he would take somebody down and, like, I don't know that I would say that I wouldn't put CM Punk to beat Ken Shamrock of this era.
No.
Oh, no, definitely not. Like,
I mean, we're basically asking, would James Toney beat Ken Shamrock? I mean, it's that level of inexperience with MMA.
Yeah, except that James Toney was actually an athlete at one point.
That's true. Well, I mean, CM Punk was an athlete. You have to call pro wrestlers athletes to a degree, not competitive athletes necessarily, but
he was a performer. He performed athletic feets.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider stuntman athletes. They're basically do a lot of the stuff pro wrestlers do. Oh, Shamrock is out of the logo. I repeat, he got nervous. He's back in the logo.
Yeah,
he didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm not. Let me put it this way: I'm not saying that there's no athleticism in what pro wrestlers do, but I think it's pretty clear that of what you can see in pro wrestlers in MMA, that many of them have no natural athleticism at all, like no coordination and rhythm and flexibility and things like that. Like,
are we going to have to watch Sakuraba's worst fights on this show next to teach you?
He comes out on the fist. He leaves the fist.
Wait, why would we do that to teach me a lesson?
Because pro wrestling is strong, Zane, and Kazushi Sakuraba said so.
Thank you, Connor.
I'm not saying that there are no pro wrestlers who are athletes. I'm just saying that CM Punk is pretty obviously not.
No, definitely not. He's not Brock Lesnar. Let's leave it at that.
The other thing is obviously that pro wrestling is incredibly physically damaging.
Yeah, it is incredibly
much more so than even like MMA is. I would imagine. Like,
in some ways, certainly,
it's like that, and I would think that like just getting they're getting drops on your head over and over again. I mean, it's basically like pro wrestling and cheerleading. I think two of the things you just don't like. Yeah,
just
think it's just really horrendously bad for you.
Horrendously bad for you for how little they produce in regards to sports.
Neither seems to translate to other sports all that well.
Well, and just neither of them is like. There's really not a lot. There's no real winning or losing in either of them, but you pay an incredible physical price for not competing.
Yeah.
Which
or
is
like
a really
ballet.
weird idea.
Ballet is probably the same way.
So the fight has actually ended.
Yeah, it ended like 2 minutes ago. But this video, like the interminability of the fight itself, the fact that there's no round clock or anything, it's just like a time warp. This fight, like you just get sucked into it, and yet you feel nothing. Who is this man? This is how they used to do decisions?
Yeah, that's how they used to score.
What the hell?
Isn't it amazing?
Snecklia.
Somebody scored that fight for Dan Severn.
Is this a judge?
I'm never sure which ones are judges and which ones are just coaches and which ones are just guys from the audience. People holding their hands up for some reason.
Teased
Severn,
that one.
They gave Severn that fight. Can you believe it?
How?
I mean, I don't really believe they gave anyone that fight. Like Severn did probably do more damage on the ground when he did have top, but not really. Actually,
not really. No.
I mean, he landed some strikes, but they were like arm. There were a lot of arm punches.
Ken Shamrock, I think,
he got Shamrock bloody. I think that's the main thing. Like,
yeah, but that happened like when Shamrock was clearly winning the fight. I mean, he was beaten already when it was him doing all the slapping.
So how much? So I think but when the thing is when Severn got him down, like Shamrock started getting like his face started getting pretty much bloodied up. So the interesting like counterfactual here is,
did it get bloodied up or did it just turn kind of purple because he was?
Yeah, no, there was a reasonable amount of blood there, I think. But the interesting thing is how much is that do we think that is due to him jabbing himself in the cheek with his own thumbnail? Like how much cost him this fight?
I think all of it.
Is that the most significant strike of the fight?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if the only reason it produced more blood is because he was rubbing his head into Severn's head when he was on top. I'm not sure that Severn really opened up the cut anymore with his strikes.
I mean, we need to see a revolution in MMA judging after this. I really want to see judges start to value nipple pressure more. Like,
I just want to see judges go back to the card.
The last judge, man, the one like he teased it out so much we weren't sure if he actually had a score.
It's true.
Like, who is this guy? Is he actually a judge? Does he even have a card in front of him? 20 seconds later, he raises up Severn, and it really landed. I mean, he knows his stuff. He's a showman, that judge.
Yeah, and it's Severn with the Rex Kwon Do team.
This is our terrible era of post-fight interviews too. We're not getting to hear these, but man,
look at these cornermen, man. This like his teammates all look like just copies of Ken Shamrock.
Just slightly, like one of them's he's just been slightly merged with other people. Like one of them slightly merged with like maybe Jean-Claude Van Damme. The one on the right is like Ally Aquinta plus Ken Shamrock. Like they're all these kind of.
It's like a bunch of like slightly badly made clones of one guy they found on Muscle Beach. They just cloned him like 3 times, and it's slightly screwed up each time. And the most screwed up one is the one who got to fight.
This is the absolute like steroid stuffed era of MMA, where every dude in there is just like, you know, these are dudes that are just like eating pills by the handful backstage and then going out and fighting.
Shout outs to that awesome poster on behind there. Dan's the man from Michigan. Like there are some every now and again you'd catch sight of a really awful poster in the audience.
But people were so enthusiastic about it then, like about MMA. This classic hardcore crowd, a lot of it did not transition to what became the modern hardcore fan at all. We
experienced some of it while watching that. I think when like the brief scrambles happened, you get a little bit, you can transport yourself back to 95 or 97 or whatever this was, and you can experience a little bit of that novelty factor where you're like, this is just kind of 2 really strong dudes who aren't really martial artists trying to beat each other up.
Well, and it's kind of we're getting some of it too, like with the modern Ryzen shows where, you know, this is what made Pride so exciting too, was like, we're just going to stick a couple of dudes who really want to do this and have some sort of combat background into a cage and watch them go after each other.
Who is this person that is embracing Dan Severn?
Is that Nikita Krylov's corner man?
The guy with the flock of
I have no
seagulls.
idea. If it had been like an old lady with big glasses, that would be his manager. But
No, I think it's a man with a very flamboyant 80s hair and a pink blazer.
yeah, I have no idea. It's probably some martial arts stuntman that we're supposed to know and who was
seemed to
like
know him very well. He spent a good little while talking to him.
or some karate guy who was in a bunch of issues of Black Belt magazine or something. Oh man, that fight.
I'm glad we did that. That was a terrible, unenjoyable time capsule into MMA's legendary past.
Again, if you could time travel back then, you could talk to these guys and be like, 20 years from now, this sport's can be sold for $4 billion. Well,
right.
This organization, and like, I guess some of them would be like, well, yeah, of course, it's amazing.
Tell the dude under Dan Severn's right arm right now that this sport is going to be sold. This organization will be sold for $4 billion in 20 years. He's not going to believe you.
I'm trying to figure out who the coach is on the right side because I feel like that's actually an MMA coach of note, and I'm not sure who it is. With the mustache and the comb over, or not comb over, but the big part. Like I feel like I know it's not Matt Hume, but it keeps looking like Matt Hume. And so I'm trying to figure out who it is. I get the feeling that it's actually somebody that like I should know.
That's probably Dan Severn's son.
No.
That's his 15-year-old son. Right
weird
there.
Combination of Brad Pickett and Uncle Creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uncle One Punch.
What a time to be alive.
Uncle One Punch. He's not invited to Christmas.
Okay, on that note, I think it's time to close the show. The fight has ended. We've faded to black. That actually ended up being a pretty fun show, mostly because we got to spend that entire fight bullshitting rather than watching it.
Yeah. That was the most Mystery Science Theater 3000 of the shows so far, I think.
On that note, you can find me on Twitter at These Anytime, and you can find Connor on Twitter at BoxingBush. That's BUSCH. You can find Phil on Twitter at Evil Greg Jackson. You can find all three of us over in our various capacities at bloodyelbow.com. We'll be coming back. I know Kid Nate's got an MMA bunker coming up. He's probably got If I Did It, and we've had Knuckle Up this week. We'll have more coming up next week. We are getting ready for BJ Penn versus Yair Rodriguez, and you can bet that we're going to vivisection the hell out of that. So thanks, everyone, for joining in, and we will see you next time. And the next time we get a break, we will be back with the MMA Depressed Us.